F. Scott Fitzgerald's The Great Gatsby is one of the most famous American novels ever written. Set during the roaring 1920s, it tells a story of love, wealth, ambition, and the illusion of the American dream. Although it takes place over just one summer, the novel explores timeless themes that remain relevant today. The story is narrated by Nick Carraway, a young man from the Midwest who moves to Long Island, New York in the summer of 1922. Nick hopes to build a career in the bond business and rents a small house in West Egg, an area known for its newly wealthy residents. His modest home sits next to an enormous mansion owned by the mysterious millionaire Jay Gatsby. Across the bay lies East Egg, where old money families live. Nick's cousin, Daisy Buchanan, lives there with her wealthy husband, Tom Buchanan. Tom comes from an extremely rich family and represents the privilege and arrogance of inherited wealth. Despite his luxurious lifestyle, Tom is unhappy and openly unfaithful to Daisy. He is having an affair with Myrtle Wilson, the wife of George Wilson, who owns a struggling garage in a bleak industrial area known as the Valley of Ashes. Early in the story, Nick visits Daisy and Tom for dinner. During the evening, he witnesses the tension beneath their seemingly perfect marriage. Daisy appears charming and elegant, but she also seems deeply dissatisfied with her life. Tom barely hides his affair, revealing the cracks in their relationship. Back at West Egg, Nick becomes increasingly curious about his mysterious neighbor. Every weekend, Gatsby hosts extravagant parties attended by hundreds of guests. The mansion is filled with music, dancing, expensive food, and endless champagne. Surprisingly, very few people actually know Gatsby. Instead, they spread wild rumors about him. Some believe he was a German spy during the war. Others claim he murdered someone or inherited a fortune from European royalty. Nobody seems to know the truth. Eventually, Nick receives a personal invitation to one of Gatsby's famous parties. Unlike most guests, who simply arrive without being invited, Nick finally meets Gatsby himself. To his surprise, Gatsby is polite, friendly, and surprisingly humble. He does not resemble the arrogant millionaire people imagine. As they become friends, Gatsby slowly reveals parts of his past. Years earlier, before becoming wealthy, Gatsby was a poor young soldier named James Gatz. During his military service, he fell deeply in love with Daisy. At the time, he had no money and believed he could not offer her the life she deserved. While Gatsby fought in World War I, Daisy eventually married Tom Buchanan, choosing security and wealth over uncertainty. Ever since then, Gatsby has dedicated his entire life to becoming rich enough to win Daisy back. Every mansion, every luxury car, and every extravagant party has one purpose: attracting Daisy's attention. Gatsby even purchased his mansion because it sits directly across the bay from her house. Every night, he stands alone on his dock, staring at the small green light shining from the end of Daisy's pier. That green light becomes one of the novel's most famous symbols, representing hope, dreams, and the belief that the future can recreate the past. Knowing that Nick is Daisy's cousin, Gatsby asks him for a favor. He wants Nick to arrange a casual meeting between them. Nick agrees and invites Daisy to tea without telling her Gatsby will be there. Their reunion is initially awkward. Years have passed, and both struggle to find the right words. But soon their old feelings return. Gatsby is overwhelmed with emotion, convinced that his dream is finally coming true. Daisy is equally moved as Gatsby shows her his magnificent mansion, expensive possessions, and luxurious lifestyle. For several weeks, Gatsby and Daisy begin spending time together in secret. Gatsby believes they can erase the past and start over exactly where they left off. He wants Daisy to tell Tom she never loved him and leave her marriage forever. However, reality is much more complicated than Gatsby imagines. Tom quickly notices the growing relationship between Daisy and Gatsby. Although he has no problem cheating on Daisy himself, he refuses to accept losing her to another man. Suspicious and increasingly angry, Tom confronts Gatsby during a tense afternoon in New York City. Inside a hotel suite, years of hidden emotions finally explode. Gatsby insists that Daisy never truly loved Tom. Tom fights back, exposing Gatsby's questionable business dealings and suggesting that his fortune was built through illegal activities involving bootlegging and organized crime. Caught between the two men, Daisy begins to lose confidence. Although she still cares deeply for Gatsby, she cannot honestly say she never loved Tom.
Gatsby's perfect dream begins to collapse in front of him.
After the confrontation, everyone leaves New York in separate cars. Daisy drives Gatsby's yellow luxury automobile while Gatsby sits beside her. On the way home, tragedy strikes. Myrtle Wilson suddenly runs into the road after mistakenly believing the yellow car belongs to Tom. Daisy, frightened and unable to stop in time, hits Myrtle, killing her instantly. Rather than stopping, Gatsby convinces Daisy to continue driving away from the scene. Back at the Buchanan house, Gatsby decides to take full responsibility for the accident. He tells Nick that he will say he was driving if necessary because he wants to protect Daisy at all costs. Meanwhile, Myrtle's husband George Wilson is devastated by his wife's death. Tom manipulates George by telling him that Gatsby owned the yellow car. Although Tom knows Daisy was actually driving, he allows George to believe Gatsby was responsible. Consumed by grief and seeking revenge, George travels to Gatsby's mansion. The following afternoon, Gatsby relaxes in his swimming pool, still believing Daisy will call him and choose a future with him. Instead, George Wilson arrives, shoots Gatsby, and then takes his own life. Gatsby dies still holding on to the dream that had defined his entire existence. After Gatsby's death, the illusion surrounding his glamorous life disappears almost instantly. The hundreds of people who attended his lavish parties vanish. None of the celebrities, socialites, or wealthy acquaintances who enjoyed his hospitality bothered to attend his funeral. Nick desperately tries to contact Gatsby's friends, but almost everyone refuses to come. Even Daisy and Tom leave town without leaving any forwarding address. They simply disappear, avoiding responsibility for everything that happened. In the end, only a handful of people attend Gatsby's funeral. Among them is Gatsby's elderly father, who proudly shares stories of his son's ambition and determination. Through him, Nick sees that Gatsby always believed he was destined for greatness, even as a young boy. Disgusted by the selfishness and emptiness of the wealthy elite, Nick decides to leave New York and return to the Midwest. He realizes that Gatsby, despite all his flaws, possessed something rare, an extraordinary capacity to dream. The novel ends with Nick reflecting on Gatsby's life and on humanity itself. He concludes that people are forever trying to move toward a better future, while constantly being pulled backward by their past. Fitzgerald captures this idea in one of the most famous closing lines in American literature, suggesting that we beat on, boats against the current, borne back ceaselessly into the past. More than a story about romance, The Great Gatsby is a powerful critique of the American dream. Gatsby believes that money can buy happiness, love, and even the past itself. Yet despite accumulating enormous wealth, he never achieves the life he imagined. The novel also contrasts two kinds of wealth: Gatsby's newly earned fortune and the inherited wealth of families like the Buchanans. Fitzgerald suggests that old money often hides behind respectability while behaving carelessly and irresponsibly, leaving others to suffer the consequences. The green light across the bay, Gatsby's magnificent mansion, his endless parties, and even his carefully crafted identity all symbolize dreams built upon illusion. Gatsby creates an ideal version of himself, believing that enough success will make his fantasy become reality. Nearly a century after its publication, The Great Gatsby continues to resonate because its themes remain universal. People still chase success, reinvent themselves, and believe that achieving wealth will solve every problem. Fitzgerald reminds us that dreams can inspire greatness, but when they become detached from reality, they can also lead to heartbreak and destruction. Ultimately, The Great Gatsby is not simply the story of a wealthy man pursuing lost love. It is a timeless meditation on hope, ambition, memory, and the price of believing that the past can be reclaimed.